Welcome back for another episode of the Adventure Box Podcast. This is Zach Edwards, and we have so much going on, so I'm going to bypass some of the normal things, except this is brought to you by Historical Conquest with a great curriculum box every month. New things come out all the time, and it comes with crafts and games and a textbook, which is amazing, and access to our digital assets as well. So, that being said, let's get into it. Because today we're going to be talking about the Siege of Boston. We've already talked about the Stamp Act, the Townsend Act, Boston Massacre, the Boston Tea Party, the Tea Act, the Intolerable Acts. These are, again, the punishments for the Boston Tea Party. We've talked about all these things. Then last time we talked about the Lexington and Concord. Yeah, that's right. Lexington and Concord, where it all began. The battles. This is not the start of the war. Of course, no one's declared war on anyone. But this is what spurred the war. So you can actually say that the battles of Lexington and Concord were not actually part of the American Revolution as an actual war. But they were the start of the revolution. The shot heard around the world being one of the shots on Lexington Green, and nobody knows who shot it. Okay, so that was April 19th, 1774. That was the Battle of Lexington and Concord. Early morning, they go try to capture, can't capture, so all of a sudden the British retreat with the armaments that they did find and try to go back to Boston. Well, when they get there, they have to wait for ships to come in, pick them up. They're waiting in a small town, and then they're able to get back. Now, they had significant losses. Nearly 200 men out of their 700 that were sent over at the time. Now, April 20th, this is when the siege officially begins. The American forces start to build armaments around Boston. Now, remember Boston. Let me show you a picture of today. This is Boston, right here. It's a picture of today. But was it always like this? No, it was not. This is what Boston looked like back then. So that's the difference. Boston now and Boston back then. They've built it out on these flats and made it a very robust and very large city. I wonder how stable those buildings are that were built on these flats. I wonder if they built down to bedrock. As a guy in construction, yeah, I know a lot of those things, and I don't know how secure that is. I mean, I'm guessing it's pretty secure because it's been there for so long. But anyways, that's a little rant there. But so the British came back, and they were able to board ships and come back over here. This is, I think, that's a readout. The city might be no, because they actually did wait before coming back. Okay, so the British come back, but what happens to the colonists? First thing they do as part of the siege is not to run into Boston. It's to cut off the access to the cities, trapping the British troops. It's the first thing they have in mind of something they want to do for Boston, to punish them for attacking. But what happens there? Well, now they just wait. See, in war, a lot of times battles are waiting games. You try to starve the other person out. So during that time, the colonists were actually trying to take control over here. I actually can't even see it. Over here. Outside of Boston with their ships in order to keep the British from restocking Boston. So these were all different ways of keeping Boston under control and cutting them off from communications with Great Britain and the other armies. So they basically cut them off and trapped the soldiers here. Now they wait. What are they waiting for? They're waiting for what is now called the Second Continental Congress, which meets in Philadelphia. So let's find out where Philadelphia is. So there's Boston, not in Massachusetts. It's way over here. There it is, Philadelphia. How far does it take to ride from Boston to Massachusetts? I'm guessing 2 days. Lexington to Concord took a long time just for that small of a distance. Took hours. That would take multiple days. But the Second Continental Congress, as soon as Lexington and Concord was attacked, you had riders going up into New Hampshire, down to the Carolinas, and it gathered support from all 13 colonies. And the 13 colonies sent their people right away. Again, May 10th. This happened. Battle of Lexington and Concord happened August 19th. The siege surrounding it happened April 20th. So within 20 days, you had all 13 colonies meet up in Philadelphia to discuss what they were going to do. So this is where they start the debate. Do we break off from Britain? Do we keep a loyalty to it? Do we send out another petition basically saying we support Britain, but we want you to stop taxing us? They didn't listen last time. The First Continental Congress, they didn't listen at all. So now the Second Continental Congress is adjourned, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. It takes them 1 month. June 14th is when they finally establish the Continental Army. So basically, they have decided, we're done. We're out. No more. They're actually writing the petition right now, the Declaration of Independence, to send over to Britain. June 15th, 1775. George Washington is appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Congress. July 5th, a little less than a month later, the Olive Branch Petition is sent out to King George III. The final attempt to reconcile their differences. Well, it's rejected. And this is the Declaration of Independence, which was more of just a thought, a draft, a theory, or a possibility, now became the next thing to write. Now, remember, July 5th, 1775. The Declaration of Independence isn't actually sent out until July 4th. And it's not adopted. That's actually when it's adopted. It's not actually adopted until July 4th, 1776. This is basically when they officially declare war and separation from the British. So they send out the Olive Branch Petition, which takes a while. At this time, the Congress authorizes the establishment of the Continental Navy and the Marine Corps. The Marines are basically those that go on the Navy and then attack by land. So they are not Navy soldiers, they are Marines who are both amphibious, so on the water, and then land. Their main purpose is to be land, but they are transported by the Navy, unlike the Army, which usually just goes by land. Okay, and then you have the Air Force, but of course they're way far from that. World War II difference than that. Okay, so now you have the Navy's been established. The Army's already been established. It's already been sent up with very meager supplies. They don't have much supplies going up to Boston to help out with the siege. So let's go back. So we're still in 1775. Let's go back to Boston. June 17th. Remember, June 15th is when George Washington is given command, appointed the commander-in-chief. So within a few days, he has to be able to get up there. June 17th is the Battle of Bunker Hill. American forces fortified Breed's Hill. It's basically a militia from the New England area, Massachusetts. It's a militia that comes in and takes over. Now, it's not actually Bunker Hill. It's the Battle of Bunker Hill, but they actually fortified Breed's Hill. Let me show you this. Let me bring up that picture again. If you look carefully, this is Breed's Hill. This is Charleston. Now, Charleston was actually quite small. This says the ruins of Charleston. That's because when it was being attacked, you had cannon fire coming across the water into Breed's Hill and Bunker Hill. But also from here, there was a lot of attacking back and forth. The militia that had set up in Breed's Hill they created a reduct, which is basically a temporary fortification, a place that they could shoot guns out of and be secure from all sides. So this is June 17th. June 17th, they have the Battle of Bunker Hill. George Washington's not there. They don't really have many commanding officers there. They're still more of militia without the army, the Continental Army. So they have this battle. A lot of things happen. One of the most significant things that happen is a man by the name of, you heard it on Monday, Major Pitcairn. Major Pitcairn was actually, again, well liked by those in Boston, well liked by those in Massachusetts. He was reasonable to work with. Well, the British troops decided that they were going to take Breed's Hill no matter what. And so they stormed this hill. And it's a quite high hill. They had to climb up the hill from multiple directions in order to take this hill and to take the reduct that's on top of it. There's cannons up there. There's men up there. They're shooting downhill. British are shooting uphill. They're climbing uphill. The colonists are just looking down at them, just shooting them off, picking them off one by one. So this is a huge cost for the British, not money-wise, but lives, including one that's very significant. And that, again, is Major Pitcairn, who is storming Breed's Hill. I think it's on the second attempt he goes up and is shot off. Who's he shot by? None other than Mr. Peter Salem. That's right. What are you saying? Oh, I don't have his deck here. Darn, I took it down. Well, I usually have him. Peter Salem. Now, Peter Salem, because he's black, or an African, because he's African-American, pre-American, free African at the time, because he was actually a slave who was released so he could fight in the Continental Congress. He comes up and he fights. He shoots down Major Pitcairn. Because he was able to shoot down Major Pitcairn, he should be honored, right? Well, actually, no. He's not honored until later on when George Washington recognizes him. And then after that, he's completely forgotten until only a few years ago when people were reading in some journals that he was actually recognized for shooting Major Pitcairn. Now, this was a good thing and a bad thing. Now, of course, war, we don't want people to die. But the good thing was that he took out an official for the British Army. I think he was actually part of the Marines. But he took out a British official, military official. So that was the great thing. The bad thing is that he was so loved that when he was shot, he falls down and his son catches him. Yeah, this is, that's right. I couldn't find the picture I wanted to show. His son catches him and he yells out, "My father has been shot," or something of that sort. At that point, the British, they don't stop the war. There's a solemnness to the war after that. He was well liked. He was well loved. Do you know who also died during that time? You've heard his name before. His name is Dr. Joseph Warren. Yeah, that's right. The physician that was in Boston, who helped with the lanterns in the Old North Church, who helped with the Paul Revere's ride, and then was shot on Breed's Hill. Two great men. Their stories are in the curriculum. But this is one of the reasons why Breed's Hill was not a victory for anyone. It was actually at Breed's Hill that they decided, you know what? It's not worth it. All these lives that are being lost, it's not worth it. Now, July 3rd, and remember, Breed's Hill, or Bunker Hill, Battle of Bunker Hill, June 17th, 1775. July 3rd is when George Washington takes control. He actually arrives there and is able to take control of the Continental Congress, turning a lot of the militia into the Continental Army. Sorry, not Congress. Army. So he takes this army, ragtag bunch of militiamen, and with his officials, train them and teach them how to become actual soldiers. Now, through the winter of 1775 and 1776 to 1776, there's a complete stalemate. Nothing's happening. The British are staying in Boston, but remember, they're out of supplies. They don't even have the wood to burn to keep themselves warm, so they're basically dissecting their own buildings in order to keep themselves warm. The people on the outside are putting together makeshift tents and makeshift buildings to keep themselves warm. This is miserable for everyone. So the American forces endure the harshest conditions, but they maintain the blockades. Okay. This is also when the British armies, the Continental Army, are starting to sign up. People are signing up to become in the army. And so because of this, they're actually able to start getting paid for it, and they are considered part of the Continental Army. But they get one-year contracts. So stay tuned for what happens after that. But remember, they have one-year contracts. So what happens after that 1 year? I'm not going to tell you now. You'll find out. So January 1776, Washington says we need cannons. We don't have the cannons that could actually attack that could attack Boston. So we need cannons. So Colonel Henry Knox and what's his name? Oh, I forgot his name. I'll remember later on and let you know about it. Henry Knox goes up and captures Fort Ticonderoga. Now that's actually something I want to show you. I want to show you a distance. Fort Ticonderoga. This is how far they are away from this. So this is Fort Ticonderoga. New York. Zooming out. Zooming out. Remember, it's right here, Vermont. Here's Boston. They had very heavy cannons that were taken. Now, with the help of between Henry Knox and I can't remember his name. He's part of the oh man, I'm really sorry that I forgot his name. Oh, it's really bad. Okay, wait a second. Let us go to our handy dandy friend, Mr. Google. Mr. Google, who was with Henry Knox to take Fort Ticonderoga. 1777. That's what it was. Ethan Allen. I shouldn't. Come on, Ethan Allen. You should know about the store, Ethan Allen, right? Okay, sorry. Ethan Allen. It was Ethan Allen and his troops. Ethan Allen had a group of men that were the Mountain Men. The Mountain Men. That's what it was. Okay, so you had Ethan Allen, and he led the Green Mountain Men on a surprise attack into Fort Ticonderoga, May 10th, 1775. 1775? That's not right. 1770. Because he was told by George Washington to take the... No, I think they actually took it beforehand. So June 10th, they were actually sent to go take over Ticonderoga. And that actually came from the Continental Congress because they needed cannons. So under secrecy, you had Benedict Arnold, remember his name. You had Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys, a militia, and also Henry Knox to go back up to Vermont, to the edge of Vermont, and to take Fort Ticonderoga and take their cannons. Now, at this point, the cannons stay. They're not doing anything. Ethan Allen actually gets into the fort and takes control of it without a single shot fired. There you go. Okay, so here we go. We are back to the timeline. It's at this point that George Washington gets Henry Knox to bring the cannons down, to give him official sanction to be able to go up and go to Ticonderoga and come back with the cannons. So this is January 1776 when he brings this here. Now, he brings them with sleds and other types of engineering, but he has to trail them from Fort Ticonderoga all the way over to Boston in order to keep this place safe. That's a long way to go. So now they fortified basically around it. Let me show you one picture that I do have. I made sure I had. For some reason, it's not showing up though. I do not know why these pictures are not showing up in my pictures. Or there. So maybe I put them in the wrong place. Oh well, I guess we'll go without the pictures. Yep. Okay, so let's just go back to the normal picture of Boston that I was showing you. So at this point, you have fortifications all throughout here and all around Boston. Actually, let me see if I have the picture available so we can actually see the fortifications. This is somewhat important. Oh yeah, actually I have it on from this site, though I didn't have it. Okay. Opening it up and bringing it over. Here's the picture I wanted to show you. There we go. So Washington's troops have fortifications all throughout here. The last thing they do is around March, they secure Dorset Heights. The reasoning is because they got their cannons up on Dorset Heights to take out Boston, but also take on any ship that comes in that might be trying to support Boston, the British. So during this time, you also have the Continental Congress. They are really starting to catch up steam. So they vote and approve Lee's, Richard Henry Lee's resolution calling for independence. This is when the official independence talks are happening and the Declaration of Independence is drafted. Now, before it was a theory, before it was a thought process by Thomas Jefferson, you know, one of our founding fathers, but it doesn't actually get adopted until July 4th. That's when the Declaration of Independence is signed. And here's something that's very significant. Remember back when we talked about Lexington and Concord, you had Samuel Adams and John Hancock. They were there at the Second Continental Congress. They were there because they were at the First Continental Congress. They were the ones trying to be captured by the British. And so they were there during the Second Continental Congress. And when no one wanted to sign, you had John Hancock walk up and sign with big, bold letters his name. And basically that signed showed the British that he was not going to let them stand up against them, that they were going to be in control, that they were the ones, John Hancock and the other officials that were there, they were in control. So this is why the Siege of Boston was so important. This is also why the Second Continental Congress was so important. Boston was the start of the war. This is basically where the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration of War started because of the Second Continental Congress. So I can go into a few more details, but I'm not going to. There's just a little bit more that happens, but I'm going to end it with this. So at this point, as soon as Washington takes Dorchester Hill, and puts the cannon there, the British said, we're done. They give up. British General William Howe is basically in control at this point. He realizes his position that he cannot support and defend Boston anymore. They ran out of supplies, they're running out of armaments, and they're being picked off, whether by cannon fire or by shots by the sharpshooters. So at this point, General Howe says, we're done. So he sends a message to George Washington and says, we will give you Boston, allow us to walk away without any more death. This is March 17th, 1776. I guess I went a little bit ahead by giving you the Second Continental Congress's decision for declaration. This was right after General William Howe ordered the evacuation. The evacuation would actually take months, and he would actually float the British troops. Now, they were actually allowed to bring on a few more ships to be able to catch up everyone and bring them out. They went up to Halifax, Nova Scotia. Why'd they go to Nova Scotia? Because they wanted to be able to recoup, release, or they had already taken a lot of the loyalists from Boston. So they didn't want to burn the city down. They could have. But part of the agreement with William Howe is that they would not burn it down if George Washington let them leave free without killing them, without sinking the ships. Just let them go. This was the agreement between the two. So within the next month, they were able to float out of Boston Harbor and go up to Nova Scotia, off-board a lot of the loyalists that were with them. And then they headed off to another place. And we're going to talk about this next time, so next Monday. And this is when we go into what really happens, what the war after Boston happens, because this is where the war spreads out throughout the rest of the country. Okay, so there's a siege in Boston. It's very important. It basically sets the standard for the beginning. It's the first victory of the Americans as the Continental Congress is put together. And so this is why this is so important to learn about. George Washington has now taken control, and as soon as William Howe leaves, George Washington sends troops up to Philadelphia, or down to Philadelphia, to keep it secure, and also troops to New York, because he knows that that is the next stronghold that they will try to take. So he leaves enough for Boston to take care of Boston, but he goes to these next two places to make sure they're secure. But we will talk about more on that on Monday. Thank you so much for joining us for this Adventure Box podcast. I'm so excited to get into this. This is one of my favorite wars in history. Though I hate war, I hate what it does, I hate the consequences of it. But those that say war is good for nothing, it's not true. It's what won us independence from the British. So yes, it is needed at times, but it should only be fought when it really needs it. And that's what George Washington knew. We're going more into that in the following weeks. Again, we've got 3 weeks of this. This is our second week. Oh, sorry, we got 4 weeks in this. This is week 2. We have 2 more weeks of the American Revolution. And then we go into another war that people don't usually talk about. No. Next we go into the birth of the nation. This is actually my most interesting one, because this is, if you like anything about politics, you probably hate politics. But if you don't like anything about politics, this is where all of it comes from. Constitution, Bill of Rights, what your rights are, what my rights are, they're all there. So stay tuned for that. And stay tuned for everything else we have, because we have got so much as we go through the history of America. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye. If you have any comments or questions, add them to the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow, actually. Take care. Bye.